Hey y'all, today's guest is Cate Hukle, better known as Portland-based darkgaze artist Kallai. Last year, Kallai put out the album We Are Forever, which was written in the aftermath of the last presidential election. It's a powerful album, it's an inspired album, and I had a great time learning from Cate what went into making that album. We also talked about her mixtape, which included 6 very influential artists, 2 of which are super rare, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. And as always, you can support us at tapeclub.substack.com. All right, enjoy my conversation with Cate. Cate, thank you so much for joining me here on the J Card. I am pumped to have you. You're coming from Portland, Oregon, I think. Is that right?
That is right. And it is, we're in the few months of sun out here. So it's a nice sunny day.
The best place in the U.S. to be in the summer. I wholeheartedly believe that.
It is gorgeous out here in the summer.
I couldn't do the winters, so it drove me away. I was like, I can't do it. I'm not cut out for that kind of thing.
Oh, what? 6 months of drizzle isn't your thing?
It was the grayness. It was the lack of sun that really got me. But a beautiful place. I want to talk to you today about your work, obviously, as a musician. And I want to start with the album you put out last year. I think it was October of last year, We Are Forever. So that was written in the aftermath of, I think, the last presidential election. So can you tell me a little bit about the writing process and how that album kind of came together?
Yeah. So, I am a transgender woman, and like that election cycle was really, and everything that's come after it has had like just a lot of stuff targeting like my community. And it was a really bleak and dark time we were in the middle of, for instance, that gray, drizzly, already kind of depressing time out here. And then this big thing happens and it's stuck in this lull of a couple of months before, all the bad stuff, is going to come, right? This bad thing is coming. And I just felt this really like big need to just like kind of get all of these feelings and thoughts about how much I love the people in my community, just about how strong and resilient and beautiful we all are. And I just really wanted to try to encapsulate it into some music. And, the writing process, basically on this record, it was kind of, okay, I'm putting together a bunch of demos, with basically placeholder parts for every single instrument that's in there, bringing them to the group. We're going to hash these out in about 6 to 8 weeks and turn them into actual finalized songs, right? So like eight songs, we're going to turn those around. And so it was a pretty intense time for everybody involved because like you have to learn everything. You have to figure out what you're going to change, what you're going to keep, try to improve it if you can in that 6 to 8 week period. And then it's a month of recording, month to mix, a couple of weeks to master, right? So like a very short period of time where we basically wrote that whole thing, and recorded it, produced it, sent it off for final production in about 4 or 5 months period at the beginning of the year. Yeah.
In terms of writing those tunes, right? So the election, obviously a catalyst and all this emotion of pouring out to like that you're trying to capture in these tunes. Was it, how quickly did you have like the songs written? Like, was it like you just kind of went into a hole for like a week and emerged with like an album, or was it like slowly they happened?
We cheated a little bit because like we had done an EP the year before, but it was kind of like a basement EP. So we took 2 of the songs. So one thing we shortcutted a little bit. It said, hey, these 2 songs thematically fit with what we want to do and like the overall story that you want the album to tell. So that meant we have 6, right, to really focus in on. And for most of the songs on there, it might be I had an old demo from like 3 or 4 years ago of like, hey, here's a couple of cool hooks, but they were never like fully a song. And I just like kind of sat down and I did the initial arrangement on all of these and just sort of like hashed them out over a week, sent them off to everybody. We'd try to show up together and rehearse and like drill them and then figure out what we needed to change. Right. So it's a little bit of also there's just 5 years like worth of like accumulated stuff and ideas that had been recording and were like sitting around on a computer somewhere and just sort of revisiting that and going, what could we use, right? What makes sense?
So you mentioned the story of the album and kind of like finding a through line, I guess, or an overarching kind of story. Tell me a little bit about that story. Like, what is, in a nutshell, the story of the album?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it starts in sort of myth, right? Sort of like trying to establish a history. Because like, I think being in the trans community, a lot of our history, like the terms always changing, like heck, the terms that we ourselves used 10, 15 years ago aren't the terms that get used today, right? And so you take that over 50 years, 100 years, 200, 1,000, right? They're all going to change. And so there gets a sense that you don't have a history, right? You don't have a story. And so the album kind of like starts its first track off with like, hey, we're actually going to tell this mythic kind of story, very much based off of a novel that we took our band name from by Maya Dean called Wrath Goddess Sing, where she retells the story of Achilles, but she says Achilles is a trans woman, and then tells this whole story coming out of that. And then works of some other people like a YouTuber named Sophie Edwards, who does a whole like transgender history, like podcast and everything. And so like I took all of these ideas and said, okay, we're going to establish there is actually a history. There's a story. There's something here that's older than most people would think. And it kind of segues into stuff that are like my own kind of like personal stories of experiences growing up. And kind of like you come to realizations about yourself and like all these challenges. And then kind of you get to a point of feeling kind of empowered because you've taken ownership over your own life and everything else. And then it ends in this far, dark, like post-apocalyptic future, but it's people still find each other, right? They still come together in music and community and family. And there's a resilience in that, right? And so it's trying to say a mythic past, I don't know, your Mad Max future or what have you, right? It's like we're always going to still be here. We will always be, right?
Well, okay, so
and we are forever.
Boom, that's right? It. That's what I was going to say.
That's it. That's the whole
name.
Point. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask is how did you land on the name We Are Forever? Because it seems like obviously it is the thesis statement kind of, but yeah. Did you know it going into it, or were you sort of like at some point you landed on it, or?
Gosh, yeah, I honestly, I cannot actually remember where we came up with the name. Oh no. I have a friend who's gonna like she's gonna give me such a hard time. I forget the name. It came from it's a line in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I love that.
And like. There's this episode in the 4th season. It's like where they finally get together and fight the big bad of that season. And the way they defeat the big bad is they use a spell to join all of their abilities together into the hero. So Buffy gets her friend Willow's smarts and magic. She gets Giles's ability to speak ancient like languages, and then I don't remember what the heck Xander has in that show, but what he's adding to that. But it's that joining of all of them together. And like the villain will literally say to her, it's like, you can't keep this up. You can't keep going. And she goes, yes, we can. We are forever. And that's the line, right? That's it.
That's amazing that it's a line from Buffy, but it feels like it's so much more. And it is much more, you know? But that's so cool.
I mean, and the whole thing in that episode, it's called Primeval. And there are just like lines like, you can't understand us. We are primeval. We are forever. It's that kind of like idea of like, we are something actually ancient. Right. And that resonates, even though it's like, I mean, it's a kind of a campy TV series from like 30 years ago, right?
I hadn't seen it until a couple years ago, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not like into vampires, I don't know about this. And then I watched it and I was like, this is fucking awesome. It's like so funny and so smart. I mean, it is so like, well written.
It is like actually, I mean, technology and everything aside, right? It's like, it is the high school experience. in so many ways. Like high school was hell, let's be honest, right? I mean, so.
It was just so well written. That's what I loved about it, because I didn't expect that. I was like, oh, this is like some fucking, TV show that was on like, I don't know, primetime TV, whatever. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, this is like, the writing is sharp. Like, it is so fun to watch. Like, what a cool show. I want to ask about looking back on We Are Forever. I know it feels like we should be past this president thing and we still have 2 fucking years to go. But looking back, has your relationship with the songs that are on this album, on We Are Forever, evolved at all? Or like, do you feel more strongly about certain ones? Have certain ones kind of fallen to the wayside? How's your relationship changed with the material?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, like the songs still mean to me the same things that they meant when I wrote them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that a lot has changed in terms of like the songs themselves and how I feel about them. I think some of the things from like a stylistic or like genre, like picture, we are like absolutely heading in a different direction than this sort of like, it's very much just a shoegaze record, right? Let's just be pretty straight up. For the most part, it's a shoegaze record. And I think I did a lot of reflection because I put so much into doing this and then like doing all these shows out there to promote it and everything else. And it was like, I actually had somebody sit down with me and go, how do you actually feel about all this? Basically asking the same question you just asked. I was like, I feel really good about it considering like how quickly we put it together and like the time pressure and like how much pressure I put everybody in the project in to get it done on these kind of like timelines. And I feel really good about it when I think about it in those terms. But it was also like I kind of stepped back and went, do I really want to be doing just this shoegaze thing, really? Right? Is it really actually the kind of music I really want to like be pouring that much of myself into? And so it's kind of like that reflection is kind of going to, there'll still be some of the hazy stuff. There'll still be some of that big wall of guitar stuff, but like, it's going to be a little bit different what we do going forward. So,
which I think is really cool. Cause like for me personally, I love when an artist tries new things and has eras, so to speak, or whatever. I think that's way more fun than just making the same album like 5 times in a row.
Yeah. And as soon as I sit down and I go, I'm going to write this type of song, something else entirely comes out. Right. Like, and I just like, I really, as soon as somebody tries to constrain me and just like, you're going to be this type of thing, I kind of instinctively want to go do something else.
Well, so that's a good transition into what I was going to get into here is Forever Could Never Be, which that is an album, I believe, of remixes, right? That dropped earlier this year.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what is the process like of corralling that many remixes? How do you get other artists involved in remixing? Do you give feedback on the remixes? Are you ever like, oh, I don't know about this one? Like, yeah, tell me about bringing together such a vast collection of songs.
I mean, I think for a lot of it, it's honestly, who do we know? And who do we think would do something interesting, right? And like a couple of the remixes, like I did a couple of them. David, who was in the band, also did a couple of them under his other project called Reclaimed. So like we had these ones that we set out and we went, yeah, let's just do a whole album of them. And so we just started reaching out to everybody we kind of knew who might, be interested in doing that. We actually have a list of other people who were interested. They just couldn't like turn stuff around. And so I think it was just a matter of, we kind of said, well, whatever we get back by a certain date, we're going to use. And then we'll fill in the rest, right? Like everybody in the band likes to do a little bit of production and everything. So we'll just like, if we don't have a song that's covered, one of us will do an alternate take on it. Right. As far as like feedback, I really just want to hear what other people do. I'm really not, I'm not going to sit back and really give a lot of critique. I mean, like if you listen to the range of them, we've got like a lounge pop kind of like version that Stargazer Lilies did for us, which I kind of want to try to perform it sometime, right? That would be fun. And then we have this really kind of avant-garde version of the last song that our friend's Bedroom Romance did, which I don't know that I can actually tell if any of the lyrics are actually in there because everything gets kind of like so granular and chopped up and put together. But like I don't know. I love just hearing and seeing that kind of like range of imagination that like different people will bring to things.
That makes sense because that's sort of like someone's creating their version of you gave them a canvas to paint on and they painted on it and it's their vision and you're not going to really give like feedback on that. What about feedback when you're writing an album, like, and you're coming up with parts and stuff, like how do you, I don't know, you mentioned like earlier, I think you said putting pressure on people in the studio. Like, yeah, tell me a bit about how you handle like communication within a band or like feedback on those kind of things.
Probably not well. Probably not well. It's probably the answer. Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of the times the way we would work, like we kind of just in order to do everything so quickly, like we basically went into studio and we tracked drums and then everything else, right? That we either tracked in like my personal recording space or like David's personal recording space. And so like a lot of the feedback process would be, hey, we're just giving each other notes over text or over Slack or what have you, right? And feedback. And we would collect sort of a document of everything and then try to go through that document, right? And just kind of like pick out what we were going to actually do, given some of the feedback. Yeah, I mean, I think some of that too, it's like there's kind of, for me, like personally, like part of the evolution of all of this is coming out a year later and then realizing I'm pretty picky, right? Like I'm pretty particular, right? About like how things work and just kind of like realizing that that's not going to work with everybody, right? Like, especially the project started out as this very open and collaborative thing. And then like 2 years later, I had like written 90% of the material kind of thing. And that's like very different. That's very different than a wide open thing where all the writing happens in like a practice room, right?
For me, like, I can't work in groups. I'm not good at it. Like, it's so annoying, but like the times I've brought in like players to try to play on stuff of mine, I have a very clear memory of the first time, and everyone would come up with a part and I'd just be like, yeah, cool, sounds good. And then like I look back on the album now and I like don't ever want to listen to it.
That is honestly quite like what a lot of the record was, right? But a lot of times, I will come in and I will have written a drum part or I'll have written a bass part and I'll just be like, hey, this is a placeholder, do whatever. Like I didn't give that piece, like from a composition perspective, I didn't give it a ton of attention. And certainly like Daniel, our drummer, who's amazing, he and I vibe and can kind of communicate because I used to play drums and, he has too. So like we can kind of like vibe out something and I can like, yeah, it needs to have this kind of feel on the toms. And then he'll do his version of that kind of feel, right? What feels right to him. And usually his version is usually better than what I wrote, right? Just honestly, but like there are some times where it's like, no, this one little section has to be exactly because these pieces were written to like interlock with each other. And like some people just, it's hard.
Kudos to you for like being able to balance like multiple folks. Cause after that experience in the studio, not that it was a bad one for if anyone's listening who was there, I loved it. It was great. I had a good time, but I'm like, yeah, I like to work with me and a producer, and that's pretty much it. Like, I don't really want to bring a bunch of extra players.
I mean, it's kind of like you absolutely have to have people who are like, who get what you're trying to do, right? And like, look, I'll be honest, I'm not always great at the communication side. should probably say we had some lineup turnover, right? Like coming out of this whole like album cycle and like writing new material, and the new material was like darker and heavier, and it wasn't like some people's natural like place to live in. And it's kind of like, if that's what we're going to do, the people have to kind of like vibe in that space really well, right? And that's like hard. That's hard.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, is communication and like being on the same page and moving in the same direction creatively. So I think, that it's awesome. And I love We Are Forever. I think it's a cool album, and hopefully the next direction, even if it is a different direction, hopefully you guys are all moving towards it together and making something sound cool. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go through your mixtape. We are back with the mixtape, and Cate, this mixtape is looking good. I'm excited to hear about it, but before we jump into it, why don't you tell the folks, was there any sort of like theme or anything going into this?
Gosh, I am so bad at coming up with themes for these things. So not necessarily a theme. Or maybe there's like 3 little mini themes here, right? I think, first couple of songs kind of cover stuff from like, how did I get into making music, and like kind of where do those foundational aspects come from? There's a couple of songs that I kind of feel like on this personal level, like I'm all about sort of these sort of transitional pieces and liminal statements and things that like were kind of important for me and in my own kind of like transitional periods in liminal spaces. And then a couple that are actually more about like maybe that had something really relevant for me in terms of like making music now. Okay,
amazing. So there's a couple statements going on here. It's like you took one mixtape, turned it into 3. I love it. Let's start with the first song. It's called Missile Command, and it's by Shallow. And I want to say real quick to the listeners, viewers, these first 2 tracks, these are rare. These are rare tracks. You had to send me MP3s of these because they're so freaking rare. So tell me a little bit about Missile Command by Shallow.
So this is, so Shallow was a shoegaze band. I lived back in Kansas, basically in a small town north of Lawrence, Kansas. So north of a college town that's like 45 minutes outside of Kansas City. And Shallow was like the only local, as far as I'm aware, the only local like shoegaze band there in the 90s, right? And this song actually got a lot of play on like the local alternative radio stations back when we actually had like alternative, like rock radio stations and everything in the 90s. And, it was just like being in a small town, like a lot of my exposure to music came through like my friends' older brothers and other things. And so like you get a little bit of metal or you get a little bit of punk from somebody. And like there wasn't a lot of like shoegaze, and having just been basically playing shoegaze music for the last 2 years, this is like basically one of those first things I ever heard in that space. And the other reason I really wanted to pick this is that Julie and Jason Shields, who are in this band, they're also in another band now called the Capsules. And I got to know them a little bit, 10 years after this came out. And they were just like super kind and friendly people. And really, from me in that local music scene, were just such a great example of how do you interact with like your fans? How do you just interact and be as like a person, even though you're on stage, right? And other people aren't. And it was something I personally took to heart.
There was one band from Kansas that I really love, and I had to double check that they were from Kansas, and they're from Lawrence. They're called Butter Glory. They were a really cool band in the 90s. I really liked them a lot. Have you you've seen Shallow live, right? I imagine.
Yeah, back in the 90s. Yeah.
So what were some of those experiences like? Like, were they really tiny rooms or?
The one I remember, they played with another kind of like popular-ish band in sort of that like indie alt rock kind of scene called Frog Pond. They played at a club called The Bottleneck, which was like one of the big clubs in Lawrence. So yeah, I don't know. It's not a huge room. It's the kind of room that when you're imagining being in a band, you'll be like, oh, I made it because I'm playing this 300 cap room or something, right? But like when you step back into the grand scheme of things, it's not like as huge.
That's still a lot, though. You know,
Yeah,
I always feel that way.
It is, right?
I feel that way about like YouTube and stuff. I have like friends who'll, post videos and they'll be like, oh man, it didn't even get to like 1,000 or whatever. I'm like, dude, if like 1,000 people came into a theater to watch your fucking movie, that would be kind of cool. So like,
yeah,
it's really cool that anyone's listening or whatever. All right, well, let's listen to Shallow and their little Spirit of Kansas here. The song is called Missile Command. Next up, we have the song Red and Blue by Freeverse. So tell me a little bit about Freeverse.
Oh yeah. I mean, back in the day, they would hate that I said this, but they were basically a riot girl band in the late 90s, also out of Lawrence, Kansas. I was, I got heavily involved in like the punk scene in Lawrence, as a teenager, like making zines, going out to shows, like, you put on house shows, right? You play in somebody's kitchen, that kind of thing. And there were just like a range of bands I could have picked. I kind of picked this song because I literally would not be married to my wife without Freeverse. Because like the first, the way we are meeting each other is I made a friend request to her on MySpace back in the day, and she only accepted it because I had Freeverse listed as one of the bands that I liked. Literally the only reason, and this is my favorite song off of this record that they did. So
do you know Freeverse? Like, do you know the members of Freeverse?
I don't. My wife actually took a college class with one of the members of the band, though, so she might vaguely know them. They have, at this point in time, they moved out to Seattle, like right after this record came out or something.
Well, I was wondering if Freeverse know that they're responsible for this relationship.
Probably not, but like I could probably, I might be able to like get in touch with one of them or something. We know the person who like did all the mix and master on this album. So
I feel like that would be so cool if someone told you that your music is what like led them to, meet someone that important. That is just like so cool. Like, what a cool story. All right, well, let's listen to a little bit of it. Here is Red and Blue by Freeverse. Next up is a song called What a Life by Juliana Hatfield. So this is moving into the second chunk of songs on this mixtape. So tell me a little bit about why you picked this one.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just, I remembered, I was just like thinking about like, how do you, like, there's so many songs you love, right? Like I have too many songs I love. So if you tried to ask me what are my top 5 songs, I would probably just like, my head would explode, just try to like process it. But I just remember seeing the video to this song, right? And the video of this song, I remember seeing this on MTV. She's like trying to play the song, like with a guitar and a mic stand. And she keeps like getting knocked over and like thrown around and beaten and battered. And so by the end of the song, she's just like all like covered in bruises and bleeding to finish the song. And there was just something about that, right? That I just it has seared itself in my brain for 30 years. That I just absolutely love that sense of like, I have these things to say. I'm going to do it. I don't really care how much like punishment I take to do it. There's just something about that really resonated with me. And like, I can remember, like being trans is like, God, I want to be her. I want to be like that. Right. Like, I want to do that. Right. And so it's one of those things of like, yeah, I want to do music. Right.
And here you are.
I want to be that tough to do it.
You did it, and you are that tough, which is kind of awesome. Was this music video obviously had an impact on you, but were you a big music video person? I say were because I feel like nobody is anymore. Like they're just who makes music videos, right? But, yeah. Were they important to you, music videos?
I mean, like maybe it's a little bit like we didn't have enough money to like actually have like cable. So like it was always a treat I got at a friend's house, right? So it was always like this special like thing. It's like, oh, we can see music videos. And it was always like, so from that standpoint, it's like, oh, like I never get to eat cake at home and there's like a buffet of it, like at my friend's place.
What's your approach like as an artist when it comes to music videos? Like, do you enjoy making them or do you care to make them?
I to be honest, I haven't been able to actually make one of my own. Like we put together music videos for some of the songs on the album, but quite honestly, it's like we purchased a bunch of stock. And I edited the stock together to try to tell a story that like resonated with the song. It's just, the things cost so much money. It requires so much time. You have to have the vision of what you want to do, right? Like, and then you got to find the people who can actually like do it. I mean, like some people can do it with like an iPhone or something, right? And like more power to them. But like, I think for me, the biggest issue, like trying to do it in this project has always been, I got to get all 4 people and like schedule all that time with them to do something that isn't like for them, like what they're really into, which is just like playing the music. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it a bunch on this show, but I'm like not a music video person. It's just not interesting to me. For me, it's like, just make a short film if you really want to make something. You know what I mean? Because it's like, sure, might as well just make a short film. It's better than make a music video. At least there's dialogue. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe that's
we could have like a Porque no los dos thing. We could do a little bit of both.
Well, actually, the Porque no los dos of this all would be what I would think would be really cool. Take 3 songs and make like a little short film with those 3 songs as like, you know, the score or something like that. Maybe that's the move.
Yeah. Oh, give me ideas. All right.
Hey, you know what? Take it. It's yours. All I want is 5 points on the back end. All right. Let's listen to a little bit of What a Life by Juliana Hatfield. Next up, we have Ladytron with a song called The Reason Why. So tell me a little bit about why you picked this one.
This could be a little bit similar on some sense to the last one from the standpoint of like, you know, later in life, as I was kind of like figuring out what my whole deal was. I used to like drive around in my car, like, I'm going to drive around the block a few extra times just to sing along to Ladytron. Cause like on some level, I wanted to be kind of like Helen Marnie and, you know, from the band. And so I knew I was going to do something with Ladytron in this. And then there's so much of theirs that I love. And they have they have different eras themselves, right? In what they do. The early stuff, very solidly like a minimalist synth pop. And then like, their mid career stuff is very lush and has a lot of like kind of things in common with shoegaze. And so like this song was kind of like the last track in that early era, but it has this really just has this bit around 2:15 or so in the song where it just kind of like blooms and opens up and you get this sense of what's coming a few years later, right? You can kind of get this preview almost of how much bigger and more expansive the stuff is going to sound, right? And I just loved that kind of like hint, this kind of like liminal space of that end part of that song.
Yeah, Ladytron, look, I'm just looking here. They've been around since 2001, or 2001 was their first studio album that they put out. So they've been around for a minute. Their most recent album is Paradises. That's from this year. Do you remember the first time you heard them? Like, which era did you like?
So I came in like in that mid spot, like around witching hour. So my wife actually introduced me to their music, and we went and we saw them on. It was either that tour or the tour after. So we're talking like 2005, 2006. I was just like blown away.
Yeah. Do you remember what do you remember about that first time seeing them?
You know, my memory, I'm an old lady at this point. So like my memory, who knows how good it is. Right. But, I just remember it's like backlit. They come out and they're just performing and like I do not know if on their albums they're using live drums or just electronic, but like they have like a live drummer who's playing with them and he's just like so in the pocket. And then their performance, they're just like really into it. And it's like this thing that could be cold or sterile in some ways because it's all electronic almost. Just felt like so live and organic and present in that performance. And I was just like, oh my, like, wow.
Where was this again?
So this was actually in Lawrence, Kansas again. They played out there, right? I still lived out there then.
Everything comes back to Kansas. This is wild.
Oh yeah, unfortunately.
Oh no. Did you take anything away from like seeing them live and try to mimic it, and not mimic it necessarily, but like get influence from it for your own performances?
So like funny enough, like you know, they're from Scotland. Helen's got definitely has there's a Gaelic twang to like the singing style of people from Scotland, Ireland. And I occasionally will like turn a little bit of that in there. And I'm going to say called out. I got called out by my friend Duncan Calver from the band Waking Sophia. He was like, hey, has anybody told you sometimes sing like Helen Marnie? It's just like, oh, he noticed. Right.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That's a compliment, right? And
no, it is a huge compliment. I absolutely, I love her work in that band. So
I'll say Duncan also sounds like a Scottish name too. So maybe,
yeah.
Maybe Duncan just naturally just detected the Scottish going on.
Right.
Let's listen to a little bit of Ladytron. Here is The Reason Why. And now we move into the last chunk of these two. Let's start with a song called Ugly IRL by Vyva Melinkolya. So tell me a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so this came out in 2020, you know, like when we're all like kind of like stuck at home and everything. I like previous to that, I was living in Seattle and I had been playing guitar in this project called Argo Nave. And we had been gearing up and like things were just kind of gelling together. And then bam, it was March 2020, right? So like everything that we were doing musically got shut down. And people in that project, they just kind of didn't want to do anything remote or anything like that. And so I was kind of like feeling really like, if I'm going to make music, it means I'm going to have to sing. I'm going to have to do all of this stuff myself if I want to do it. And it's like had a lot of like vocal dysphoria and everything. So like the prospect of doing that, just like it felt like just so like overwhelming. And then I do not remember how I came across this music, but Angel, who is Angel Diaz, who is the artist behind Vyva Melinkolya, like she just put out this EP and I was just like, this is gorgeous. And she's doing the vocals and she's also trans, just like me. I was like, I can do this. Like she can do this. I can do this. Right. And like that kind of like set me on the road of, okay, I'm going to try to figure out how to do this right myself. And it's like a very surreal thing. Cause like I'm probably old enough to be her mom. And not necessarily in a I was a teenage mom kind of way, right? Like, so it's a little bit weird in that sense that you're like taking this big inspiration from somebody who's so much younger than you. But like, I told her this, like she played here a couple of years ago. And so like, she had some crazy old lady tell her about this, right? But like,
that's so cool though. That like, I mean, that must have felt incredible to get that compliment, to be like, you made me like capable of making stuff, I guess. I don't know. It's like,
yeah, I don't know. Like, but it is this like surreal experience of like being able to take this inspiration, not from somebody who's like your elder or whatever, but from somebody who's like significantly younger than you. And you just see them doing something like, oh, I could do that. Why not?
that's what's so cool is that the inspiration like that can come kind of from anywhere. And when it hits, it's like such a cool feeling. And you know, that's such a great story. That's just so cool to hear. I love it. It's very like positive and uplifting. I love it. Let's listen to a little bit of Vyva Melinkolya. Here is Ugly IRL. And the closer, the closing track, track 6, is called Evaporate, and the artist is A.A. Williams. So tell me a bit about this one. Any reason for making it the closer?
You know, like, I think the last track, like a big part of it kind of like set me on this sort of path of doing this sort of shoegaze thing for a bit. And this song, I listened to this record that A.A. Williams did a few years ago, and her new one too is amazing. And I was just like, oh, this is so much of like what I actually really want to be doing now. Like this stuff that has this sort of darkness to it and this kind of like theatrical, it's got like metal and shoegaze and kind of like neoclassical stuff in it. I was just like, yeah, I have always had this itch to do something that dark and that heavy, right? And so it's kind of like everything before now is kind of like little bits and pieces how you get to here, and now it's like, where am I pivoting? And so this song, like, I'm not saying that everything we're gonna do is gonna sound like her stuff, but like it has so many elements of things that I want to try to explore, and so. Yeah, I just figured it's like, it's a natural place, like, to end for now.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense. It's the closer of this mixtape, but it's like the most current step, I guess, or something like that.
Right.
A.A. Williams, I'm reading here, is from London. I wonder if she's ever played over here in the US.
So she has, and unfortunately, I like the 2 times that she has been here in Portland, I could not go either time because I was putting on a music festival on one night. So like, I actually have to be there for the music festival I'm putting on, unfortunately, right? Like I can't.
What was the music festival?
So we do like here, myself and then a couple of members of the band, 10 Million Lights here in town. We do a small like festival called Dreamgaze PDX. And so that was the when she came through here, the time that I recall is she came through here when we were putting on that very first like festival. And like I had put so much, like I was the person who made all the checklists for like, here's the run of show for your day of show, everything that has to be done from 2:00 in the afternoon all the way through midnight. So I kind of had to be there, right? You know, for these things. And so it made me very sad. My wife actually ended up, she had my permission to skip my music festival to go to this show with the caveat that she had to bring me back all the merch, right?
Yeah, hey, you know what? I think there will be other times to see A.A. Williams. I think you did the right thing by sticking to Dreamgaze. I think that's the way to do it. Is there another iteration of Dreamgaze coming up?
That's TBD. Like we've had a lot of things happen, with last year's where it ended up that like 3 different regional festivals all got scheduled on like literally like the same week. And so it's like trying to find the right spot on the calendar. So we're not on like the festivals in particular, like there's the Sea Gaze Festival in Seattle and also the Tremolo Festival in Seattle. And we're friends with all of those people. So we do not want to schedule over them, right? We want to like try to make some room for all of that. We will we did this year, instead of doing a full festival, we did a series of sort of like little mini showcases shows where we had like a band from out of town and a few local bands, and we put them together just under like a common like banner that we promoted. And we'll probably do at least one or two of those next year. But like the festivals are like a much, much bigger thing to try to put on. And there are just so many details, and we got to figure out like how much money, if everything goes wrong, are you willing to lose out of your own pocket? Right. And that's kind of like the big question around that planning. So
yeah, it's no easy task. I know the folks who started up Tree Fort Music Festival in Boise, and I do not envy them. It seems like a very
that
stressful...
one is like 2-3 orders of magnitude bigger, and I couldn't imagine trying to put that one on.
Me neither. That is a lot of work and a lot of people asking you a lot of stuff. You have a lot of coordinating to do.
Booking so many bands. I mean, like, great.
Yeah, booking all the bands. I don't even want to play like a single solitary show. You know, that's too much logistics for me. You know what I mean? So forget it with the festival. Let's listen to a little bit of A.A. Williams. The song is Evaporate. And that's it. That's the mixtape. I loved what you did by splitting it into those little chunks. It told a story. It's kind of like We Are Forever in terms of, you're always finding that story, that through line. Tell me any honorable mentions, any artists who you maybe would have put on if you had more songs that you could have done.
Oh gosh, I'm like now so on the spot. I'm gonna just forget everybody.
Well, let's do this. Why don't you just name one? It doesn't have to be anyone. Look, anyone who they know that we don't have to get into it. But let's just name one artist maybe who is an honorable mention who didn't make the cut.
So I have some friends here in town. My friends in the band Dark Swoon. They just put out a really gorgeous record earlier this year, and they actually put out my favorite record of 2022 as well. So I just like I would have loved to have found something, but it was just like, I don't know. I'm trying to like figure out what little narrative can I fit this in. And I just couldn't quite put that in there.
Yeah, we'll shout them out right here. Dark Swoon, and the album I believe is called Anti-Venom, I think.
That's right. Is that right? It is absolutely gorgeous record. You have some people where you're like, oh, gosh, I wish I could have written something like that, right?
Yeah, it's true. A shout out to Dark Swoon, the most honorable of honorable mentions. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to play a little game, and then we will get the hell out of here. All right, we are back with the game, and today's game is a classic. It's called Showdown. It is about shows that you have played, Cate. It is not like a showdown. We're not facing off or anything. It's a misleading name.
But come on, I was ready.
I know, I was ready too, but we'll have to save it. The way Showdown works, I ask you about shows you've played. So the first one we're going to start with, fittingly, is the first show you played. Do you remember the first show you played?
Oh gosh. The first one I remember. So this is I'm getting up there in years. So, a Halloween house show when I played in a punk band. We played in somebody's dining room, along with a couple of friends who were also in punk bands. And surprisingly, the house was like packed. I'm like not even sure how the house got packed. Like, I don't remember inviting anybody or putting flyers up. I don't recall anything about that. We didn't have a PA. I think we used somebody's amp to run a mic through it. Like, I mean, what are monitors? You don't need monitors, right? What the heck are those, right?
So it's a Halloween show. Were you all playing covers, or were?
We did a really bad Misfits cover of Halloween, right? Because it's the night, right?
And then my more important, more pressing question, because it's a band from when you were young. Do you remember the name of the band, the cool name y'all made up?
It was Subject to Change.
Wait, that was the name of the band?
That was the name of the band. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I actually love that. That's awesome. I want a Subject to Change reunion.
Oh, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So next question is, and look, for this one, you can frame it however you'd like to, but it's worst show that you've ever played. So you can say worst in terms of maybe your performance, or maybe it was like a bad venue, or however you want to frame the word worst. You can frame it however you want, but worst show you've played.
So, okay, I'm going to say this. It's like, wasn't actually all that bad, but just from hey, everything's going wrong that can go wrong. I played here 4 or 5 years ago in sort of like this gothy, trip hoppy, I don't know, I call them like Curve meets Hooverphonic kind of vibing band that was called Luscious Apparatus. And our first show, we got booked to open for Curse Mackey, who, if you're in that goth and industrial scene, has played in tons of like big like goth and industrial projects. And so we got booked for our first show to open for him. And like we used like IEMs, like dozens of backing tracks, everything's running direct. It's just like a ton of tech involved. And all of the tech went wrong. like the tracks weren't aligned. Like the in-ear monitor mixes kept getting messed up somehow, and nobody could hear anything, even though the whole point of it is that like have them all be used. So like songs were getting played with different people playing, like being a measure off or two, right? Like from one another. And it took like 2 or 3 songs for that to for us to figure out all of those issues. And like, when we talked to people afterwards, people were like, we could tell something was wrong, but we didn't know what because everybody had a panicked look on their face.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Right?
Everybody was playing. No one stopped playing, but everyone was scared.
Right. We kept it going, but like nobody was necessarily playing the same part of the songs at the same time, right? We figured all that stuff out and then like got into a groove with it. It took, I would love to say that by the next show everything had been fixed, but no, it took 3 shows for us to like get all of that like figured out completely. And so it's just one of those things where now I can look back and I can kind of laugh about it. Right. But like, cause it's kind of silly. It's like we didn't have any music out. Nobody knew anything about us. We're opening for this. The place is packed. And of course, that's what happens. Yeah. Right.
Yep. I think it's a blessing though, because it probably felt just like this avant-garde thing. People were like, whoa, this is so like creative and cool.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's what it was. The last one in the Showdown is the most unique show that you've played. So again, define that how you will, but what is the most unique show you would say you've played?
I'm gonna go with so Kallai, we played a show where we opened for the bands Modati and Pink Breath of Heaven. It was on our little like weekender run for the album release. And those are 2 like really great bands. We literally played in Eugene, Oregon for like a dozen people on like a Tuesday night. But like that experience, like that venue is now closed, but there was a bar cat. So like everybody's taking pictures with the bar cat, we're all like all the bands are just kind of like hanging out and just being everybody's like biggest boosters. Like giving each other like good feedback to everybody that isn't just, hey, great set, right? Isn't just that vibe. There is something about like, you're only playing for like a dozen people, but you're all in it there together and you're all enjoying this time together as like different artists. Those experiences, they have power too, right? And so like that's one of those ones I'm just going to remember.
Hell yeah. It's like I'd rather play to an audience of 15 locked in people who love it than 300 people looking at their phones.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've had shows that we've done out of town where 6 people show up, but all 6 people bought merch, right? And you're like, hey, that's actually awesome in its own way, right?
You're like, According to the spreadsheets, this is a win. We made
That's
money.
right. 100% of it, people who attended like bought something from you, right? Like,
yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, that was the Showdown. You know, I think you passed with flying colors. That was amazing. Why don't you let the people know where they can find you, where they can listen to your music, and what you might have coming up, keeping in mind that this should go live August 6th.
yeah. So if you go to kallaipdx.com, that'll have links out to all of our social media, everywhere where our albums are. That's probably the easiest place to go, like one-stop shop for that. We're kind of like in a little bit of a hibernation writing period right now. So like right now, not like shows that I can talk about on the horizon, but you should expect either like later this year or going into early next year, chances to see us live too. So
amazing. I love it. Listeners and viewers, as always, if you want to support what we do, you can do so at tapeclub.substack.com. While you're there, you can sign up for the Tape Club. That's where you'll get these little compilation cassette tapes mailed to you. Here's an example of the June 2026 tape. If you're watching, you can see me hold it up. If you're listening, you're hearing me discuss it, I guess. But those compilation tapes are great. And if you sign up, you get a quarterly little package sent to your door with 3 tapes. 1, this compilation tape, and then 2 Lucy tapes from my collection. It's a pretty good deal if you like tapes. Tapeclub.substack.com is the place to go. I want to give a quick shout out to associate producer Olivia Stonier. I want to give a shout out to Jamie Halliday for helping with booking. Obviously, Kate, a shout out to you for joining and taking the time to chat with me. And last but not least, the listeners and the viewers, thank you so much for listening and viewing, and I will see you next time. Peace. The J-Card podcast is a fully independent production. It is made possible by listeners and viewers just like you. So if you want to support us, tapeclub.substack.com is the place to go.